Hello besties, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know I've been MIA again for a very long time, but things have happened. The pages are turning, new chapters are coming. The plot is finally twisting on this one, and definitely the seasons are changing. And as you can see, I'm already in fall vibes. The leaves are already falling here. The air is getting colder. Candles are burning already, and it's getting cozier and cozier. I wish I can tell you right now that I'm drinking a pumpkin spice latte, but I'm just a basic girl. I just need a coffee. Before we dive right into the video, I want to come on here and talk about the books that I've read all through summer before I talk about all the books that I want to read for fall season. And if this video takes too long, I might just create a new separate video for the fall TBRs. But for this video, we're going to talk about my summer reading wrap up, all the books that I've read all through summer. So the very first book we're going to talk about is This Summer Will Be Different by Miss Carly Fortune. This is one of the very first summer romance book that I've ever read, and it definitely paved the way for all of my next summer romance adventures. As I have mentioned it here before, that I veered towards classics, mystery thrillers, poetry, and self-help books, but I tried to read romance this year and I kind of like it. I'm kind of obsessed. The very first thing that I felt connected to with this book is the setting. This book takes place in Prince Edward, one of Canada's eastern maritime provinces of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Miss Fortune, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is a Canadian writer. So I'm assuming she's been to Prince Edward, or maybe she lives or she lived there, because a lot of places that she mentioned in this book were actual real life places in Prince Edward, and she definitely used a good setting on this book. It's very summery. This book is about Lucy. She is a tourist vacationing at a beach house on Prince Edward, and then she meets this guy named Felix at a bar, and then they ended up spending the night together until she realizes that Felix is her best friend's brother. And then she'll take you 5 years to the present when her best friend Bridget is about to get married, and now she is again back in the forced proximity with Felix, but Bridget had this one rule with her, that she's never allowed to fall in love with her best friend's brother. Thoughts about this book. I realized how important it is to pick a perfect summery setting if you're writing a summer book, because the setting of this one really took the rating up a notch. Miss Carly Fortune really killed it with this one, but there was just one main conflict in this book that it really kept me hanging for a while. It's her best friend Bridget was keeping this secret from her all throughout the book, and it's such a big pushing force of the plot that I really wanted that secret to be worth all the wait and all the suspense. But it wasn't nearly as close as I thought it would be, but the secret was definitely underwhelming. It wasn't a total cop-out though. It still kept me reading the book, but when I found out what the secret was about, I was just like, that's it? Then why didn't you just tell her that then and just try to communicate with her? You know what I mean? Overall, I really enjoyed this book. The connection and chemistry between Felix and Lucy definitely grew and developed over the years of them knowing each other. This story gives you a lot of flashbacks from the previous years they spent with each other. I kinda wish there'd be more interaction between the two though. I probably crave for more banters on this one, but I still gave it a solid 3.5 rating nonetheless. Now, if you think that's too low of a rating for a newbie romance reader like me, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the rating system here. Bear with me, I'm learning. Okay, second book is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This book is a grumpy sunshine trope, which I really love. If you don't know, this book takes place in the same world as Chestnut Spring series. Wild Love is about Ford Grant Jr. Ford Grant Jr. is a grumpy, woody, small-town billionaire. He is also a single dad in a very unique way. He started this music streaming app. He's also a producer. He's obviously in the music industry. He was even named by Forbes as one of the hottest billionaire of some sort. And then you meet Rosie. Of course, she's a sassy sunshine. Rosie turns out to be Ford's best friend's sister. So Rosie goes back to her hometown, which Ford hasn't seen her in a long time because she had a life in the city, but she's back in town to kind of figure out what she wants to do in life. And then Ford ends up hiring her to work for him for the time being. There's also an element of this book that I absolutely loved, and it was actually included in the summary as well, so I'm not really spoiling anything here. I feel like it showed more of Ford, and I feel like it gave Ford more depth into him, and it gave a comedic effect to it, and I absolutely love it. It was done really well. And also there's this little part of this book that was included that gives so much more to the story than just the romance side of it. And I love the way Elsie Silver can do not just the romance between the two main characters having a great relationship, great banter and great chemistry, but she can also do a great family dynamic. It's not just Rosie's relationship with Ford, but also her relationship with her brother and her dad, and everything just goes together so well. I absolutely ate it up. I think I gave this a solid 4.25. I love everything they said to each other. I think they're absolutely meant to be together. The banter is very smooth and woody. The storyline was amazing. The pacing was done very well. And what more can I say about Elsie Silver's writing? I cannot wait to read the next book. I think the next book is called Wild Eyes, and I'm obsessed. Our third book is Flawless by Elsie Silver once again. This book is about Rhett and Summer. This is the very first book of the Chestnut Spring series. Rhett is a famous bull rider, and Summer is his agent's daughter. Yeah. Rhett is having a little bit of a pure nightmare at the moment, and essentially Summer was there to babysit him. She then moves into their family ranch to make sure he's behaving well, so he fixed his PR scandal and so he gets all his brand deals back. The tropes we have in this book are forced proximity, which is the main reason that forces them to be in this situation they find themselves in. We have a workplace romance, city girl, country guy. We also have a little bit of a grumpy sunshine trope. Rhett is a nonchalant guy who doesn't really care, and that's how he lost all his brand deals. And Summer is a total opposite of Rhett. She is a sunshine and has a very positive outlook in life. And then you get introduced into the other characters, her dad, and then you get a little bit of an insight into her relationship with her sister, which is very rocky at the moment. And then you get an insight into Rhett's side of the family and all his brothers. I think I gave this book a solid 4 stars. This book gives off a small town country cowboy vibe, which is very prevalent in this book. And I also have a little trivia about Chestnut Springs. Chestnut Springs is an actual real place in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which was not a surprise if Miss Elsie Silver writes so much country cowboy books, because she's a Canadian girly like me, and I think that's so cool that she uses an actual place in her book, which is very relatable for us Canadian readers. I really like it. The fourth book we have is The Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This is the second book of the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and just by the title of the book itself, it's obviously a country cowboy romance. This book follows Ada. She is an interior designer, and she basically just gotten out of a messy marriage, and she's currently divorced. The second main character is Wes. I'm getting confused with all the names. Anyway, this is Wes, right? Is there? Weston Ryder. She just took over Rebel Blue Ranch, which hasn't been lived in for years, and he's been wanting to restore and renovate this big house in the Rebel Blue Ranch to make it some source of an income. And this is where Ada comes in. Essentially, in the beginning of the book, she walks into this bar. This is the only bar in town, and this is where she first met Wes. They ended up making out in the back alley. Meanwhile, Ada is trying to grow her interior designing business, and taking on this Rebel Blue Ranch project is such a big opportunity for her, which means staying away as far as possible from anything romantic with the man that hired her. This book has all the wonderful elements of a slow burn romance, kind of a workplace forbidden romance situation they're in. These two had a lot at stake with this project, but it might also be worth risking their hearts as well. I absolutely fell in love with Wes. He is the outcast of the family. He doesn't quite fit in as well, and it's so endearing how he captured the project from start to finish. And Lila Sage definitely knock us out of the park with this one. The way she writes about the ranch, the way she writes about the country life, and you can almost envision, like you can almost imagine how the ranch looked like when they finished the project. And I gave it a solid 4 stars. I think I finished this book in one sitting. It's very fast paced and it's definitely a perfect summer read. Look at the cover. It's 4 stars. For the 5th book, we have Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. I'm smiling because I know I still remember I gave this a 5 star. Miss Ellen Hildebrand, she is the epitome of summer to me. Hotel Nantucket is a literary fiction. It's an absolute breath of fresh air. It's about this hotel in Nantucket that was infamous for being haunted. Apparently back in the days, there was a servant that died there when the hotel caught on fire. Ever since then, she's been roaming around the hotel. Then there's this rich guy who ends up buying the hotel and wants to turn the hotel into something new, something big, something grand, something famous hotel that people in Nantucket can stay in. And there's also an element of this story that I really enjoyed. There was this anonymous famous influencer that was going around the world experiencing and rating 5-star hotels, and she never revealed who she was. And when she'd visit, she comes as a secret shopper, and she's very notorious for never giving 5-star rating. And so the staff of Hotel Nantucket, they've been preparing for her arrival, and you get a point of view of Elizabeth, who is the hotel manager, and she ends up hiring housekeeper, bellman, front desk people, chef, and all of that. So you get a point of view of all these other characters, and also you get a point of view of the ghost that lives there, which I find it very interesting. There's so much mystery going on in this book, and there's so many secrecy going on between all these characters, and I absolutely ate it up. This book is 368 pages, and I almost finished it in one sitting. It's very fast paced, it's very interesting, and yeah, I gave it 5 star. I already bought a second book from her. It's already on my TBR. It's perfect couple, and I can't wait to read it. Yeah, I really love her. I really like her writing. The next book we have is on my Kindle. I don't know why I don't have a physical copy of this book. It's the Happy Place. It's Happy Place by Emily Henry. This story is about Harriet and Wynne. It's a dual timeline, so you get a story when Harriet and Wynne first met in college. They were roommates and they had the same group of friends. They would go on to this annual summer vacation to this lake house in Maine. It's one of her friends' family's lake house. So this is where they spent a lot of time together, fell in love, and became a couple. And then there's the present timeline where it's their last summer in this lake house because Sabrina's dad is selling the lake house. Unfortunately, at this time, they're already broken up. They were engaged to be married, by the way, and they broke off the engagement, and now they're forced to spend a week together. It's a forced proximity. They're forced to spend a week together pretending that they're still together because they didn't want to tell their friends about the bad news that they've broken up, because they didn't want to ruin the trip. You would think this book is very surface level, rom-commy, extra lovers trope, but when I read this book, it's so much more than that. I don't know what Emily Henry put in this book. The metaphor, the quotes, the character development, in the writing style, I absolutely ate it up. It's so relatable for me. This book is so much more than just a romance book. It also talks about friendship and how you navigate your life after college when all your friends are moving away and having their own separate life. There you are wanting to maintain this relationship. You're friendship with them, but people could think this is just a surface level kind of book because the main conflict of the book is just miscommunication. But in real life, miscommunication is such a big thing in relationship and friendships. So this book kind of teaches you how to open up, and that you have to have a good communication with the people that you want to be around with in order for you to keep them and maintain a relationship with them. And that's what the book talks about. I really connected with Harriet in that way. Gave it 4.25. I enjoyed this book. This is not the first book I've read by her. I also read The Funny Story, but this is definitely 4.25. The next book we have is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is the second book I read by her. This book is about Daphne, whose engagement had just recently broken off because her now ex-fiance cheated on her with his childhood best friend. And then you have the male main character named Miles, whose ex-girlfriend is now Daphne's ex-fiance's new girlfriend. So you have a swap of significant others. So Daphne, she has to move out from the house that she's living in with her ex-fiance, and then she moved in with Miles. They don't have anything in common, so they became awkward roommates for a while. Then you have Daphne. She's a librarian. She loves her job. You get to see a lot of her work life. How much she loves reading books to the kids was the highlight of her whole week. And then you get to see her navigate around opening up to people, especially Miles, because she's typically very closed off because she used to move a lot in her childhood. I feel like a lot of her backstory felt kind of real to me. I don't know, but I felt really connected to her. And as for Miles, I love that Miles is very charismatic. I love that everybody in town loved him, and he's not your typical male main character, broody, arrogant, famous Hollywood type of guy. He's just your typical normal dude who's unfortunately going through a breakup right now. And I feel like we need a lot of these romances where the male main character is genuinely just a nice guy, because Miles is a golden retriever. He's very easygoing, and I love how Emily Henry set the characters up in their situation that they're in. I feel like in a lot of romances, it's easy right off the bat having our two main characters to have feelings for each other. Whether it's chemistry, you just kind of know right away that there's tension going on between the two, and right away you know later on that they're gonna be together. But in this one, they're both mourning the loss of a relationship, so they're kind of like in this whole situation together. And I like the forced proximity of being a roommate, but they're needing to stay platonic because, like I said, they're going through the same unfortunate breakup together. They're trying to help each other out, not to be sad over it, and that's why they're trying to stay platonic. Some of Emily Henry books were more on the fiction side, but had just these little subplots of romance, but they have like this realistic thing going on. But in this book, I feel like the romance is heavier on this one. The banter and the physical attraction is more heavier. They still have realistic thing going on. They're going through things that are realistic, that have backstories, they have history, and they have family life that gives depth to the story, and it gives depth to them as characters. I love how Emily Henry can suck you into the story, how they connected. Daphne and Miles hanging out together felt really realistic to me. I like that she didn't write it to force the romance, you know, it just gradually falling in love with each other. It's not like forced kind of romance. It's definitely not a slow burn, but they're definitely taking their time, which I love. The timeline and pacing of this one is really amazing. And if you're a quality time kind of girly, you're gonna love Miles because his quality time came. I love the way she wrapped up the whole story and kind of connected it through the book and through the beginning of the book. I love her storytelling so much, and it's so obvious I'm giving this a 5-star. I love the way you have these two characters in the beginning are such different people, but in the end of it, seeing their growth throughout the whole thing, not just together but individually, you learn so much about them, and they learn so much about themselves individually, and they learn so much about themselves within each other. I really love this book. I cried so much happy tears, sad tears. If I can marry a book, I'll marry this. This book is a 5-star for me. Next up is Beach Read, again by Emily Henry. Look at the cover of this book. Isn't that so cute for summer? This book, I would absolutely marry this book. I would absolutely marry Gus. The quotes, the letters, the writing, it just felt so real. It doesn't feel rom-com-y at all. It felt like a literary fiction about these two characters that are broken down and is grieving two different things, but coming together the second time. It was so real and was so deep, and I don't know why I hate this word, but it's so tender. That's how I felt about reading this book. They felt like real people with real stories and real life. The things that I do for Gus, he has a heart of gold. He is sunshine, and he is definitely written by a woman writer. So they're both grieving two different things, but they have this thing going on. They're both writers, and they kind of switch genres to write. Then feelings start to grow. I don't want to say too much, but I gave this book a 5-star. I feel like all Emily Henry books I've given 5-star because she's the queen. Just read it. Emily Henry's good. 5 stars for this beach read. Next up is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This book is a dual point of view. It's basically about these two people who have this kind of curse on them. Every person they date, the next person that ex dates will be their soulmate. The girl main character sees this story on Reddit about this situation. Emma ends up DMing him. They strike up this kind of agreement that if they start dating, that maybe if they date and break up, it'll cancel the curse and they'll end up finding their soulmate. There's kind of like a deal going on that they have to go on these precise dates that they used to do with their exes, and then they said when we break up we'll hopefully find our soulmates. Emma is a traveling nurse. There are 2 elements to each characters that will play a huge part. Emma has a bad relationship with her mom, and Justin has to take custody of his 2 young siblings. Right off the bat, I love the meet cutes that Abby Jimenez does. I feel like with all the other romances, it takes a little bit for our 2 main characters to be in the same scene together. You kind of get a background of each of the characters first before they start talking, but majority of her stories in that first chapter kind of have their first interaction already. You get right into it. She throws you right into the story. Miss Abby Jimenez is so heavy on dialogue, and I really love that. I feel like if there's a lot of dialogue, it's very fast-paced. At the beginning, I wasn't iffy about their relationship. I just didn't know how I felt about their connection or their chemistry. But once they finally met and kind of hung out a few times, I got to know them more, I guess I should say. Now I'm really loving them, and that's because they have such a low stake situationship going on where they just had this deal to kind of break off the curse that they have, and they would break up eventually. It's such a low stake where there's no hesitation to be in the relationship, I feel like, because it's not supposed to go anywhere anyways. But once they start opening up, I feel like they really connected in an emotional level because they have these separate things going on with their family life, and these things they're going through are pretty heavy, and they're still going through it. They're both in their different parts of their lives, and being able to connect on that and kind of help each other go through it and grow through it. It's like the scenes that they're in, the things that he says to her, the banter. It's definitely guy falls first, and I just love that. And like what they need in their life right now, they're both giving that to each other, which I think is so nice to read about. I definitely give this 4.25, but there's a lot of trigger warnings in this one. There's talks of sensitive matters that might trigger you, so just be careful. Read at your own discretion. Abby Jimenez. Was this my first book by her? I don't even know, but let me see. I think this was the first one. This was the first one, which is very good because it's 4.25. Next up is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I haven't been so engrossed in a book and wanted to binge it like this in so long. I'm just so happy I read this. I gave it 4.75 stars. This is more like a women's fiction type of book. It follows our main character Clementine, which I really love her name, Clementine. She is going through the grief of losing her aunt, who was her travel buddy. She looked up to her so much. They would go on to this exotic and spontaneous travels around the world, and when her aunt passes away, Clementine inherited her aunt's apartment in New York. The romance in this book is very magical, but the magic didn't take over the romance side of the story. So she inherits her aunt's apartment when she passes away. Then the apartment slips 7 years to the past and 7 years to the future, and then the apartment gives her this guy named Ewan. He's just like a breath of fresh air. I was so obsessed with Ewan. And then there's this plot twist that happened. There's a little bit of foreshadowing going on that you don't understand understand until you go further into the story. Ewan gave Clementine a very cute nickname, and I was just giggling every time he calls her that name. It's so cute. Romance was not the whole premise of the story. That is probably why I gave it 4.75 stars. That I feel like if there was more romance plot, I would have given it 5 stars. But not to say that the plot wasn't good. That's not what I'm saying here. It's a character-driven book. The plot focuses more on her character, on her career, on her journey as a character, Clementine. But it included Ewan and the apartment and the magic, and it all worked out together. It was so fast-paced. I never got bored. It just kept on flowing. And her aunt, she's my favorite character in the story. I really loved her story too. She's very mysterious and eccentric, and the way Clementine looked up to her and wanted to be just like her aunt. The messages that the author threw in here, the magic once again didn't take away from the characters and the romance or from the plot or anything like that. It was so good. I highly recommend this book. The next book we have is this very summary book, The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I started this book with not much expectation. Our two main characters, they were roommates for like over a year in college, and they're going their separate ways. He moves out and then she stays, or whatever, I can't remember. But she is a struggling artist and she's trying to pay her dad's medical bills. Wes, the main character, comes back in the picture and tells Anna, technically we're still married, and in order for me to get the trust, my inheritance, we have to stay married until we hit the 5th year, which is coming up in a few weeks or months, and you need to accompany me to my sister's wedding. I forget where they go, but it's on an island obviously, because Wes' family is filthy rich. Anna literally had no idea that she married a rich man. Anna, she's one of the funniest characters I've ever read in a book, and I'm not even saying that lightly. Maybe it's like my humor in a book, or I didn't expect her to be that funny. I was laughing out loud and I was giggling at this girl because she's just so unserious in so many serious situations, and just the things she would spit back, and I was just laughing. Just reading her humor just hits so different in my head. Like, I'm obsessed with her. I love Anna. But I ended up giving this book a 3.75 stars. She was just thrown into this new world that she's doesn't have any idea about. She's never been in this situation before. This book had just a lot of things that I like. The fake dating and fake marriage was just so fun. We also have rich people problems here because they're filthy rich. And the wedding. Who doesn't like weddings in the book? Weddings are my favorite thing to read about. I absolutely love them. I absolutely ate it up. It had tension, humor, and banter. They took the com and rom-com and used it to their advantage in this book. I don't know if I didn't expect it to like it that much, but I had such a great time reading this one. Our two main characters' dynamic was so unexpected. They couldn't be more opposite of each other, and I think that's what makes it more fun. But the way they end up connecting with each other in an emotional level, like, yeah, we get each other, and it's just that you don't expect it, and then you get thrown into the romance and then the drama, and a lot blows up, and it's entertaining and it's fun. I would definitely love to see this as a movie. I think it would be fun. I do wish we got a little bit more on an emotional level with Wes though. It's like we're getting there, and I feel like we could have gone a little bit more deeper. But other than that, I had such a fun time. And also, the only thing, which is not a bad thing, the epilogue was so long. But my rating has nothing to do with that. I think my expectations weren't there, which is the best way to go in a book. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Really recommend. And just look at the cover of this one. It's very summery. The last book in this summer reading wrap-up will be Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. I think this is her debut novel. Look. So Nora is a screenwriter for cheesy romance movies, but the story is actually about her own life and her own divorce, and so they came to her house to shoot the movie, and so you got this super handsome male character of the movie. He just kind of sticks around after the shooting wraps up, just keeps hanging out with Nora, and then you just kind of follow this. Is this guy gonna stick around? Are they gonna fall in love? I don't know what's going on. And you just kind of have this trope of super famous guy who kind of just want to escape into a small town for a bit. Kind of cute how he treats her kids in the story. I also love seeing in single parent trope how the other character come to love someone else's kid. I feel like it's so sweet to see through the parents' eyes how seeing someone love your child as much as you do. I think that's very, very sweet, and I love that part of this book. I love it when there's kids involved in a book. Like, who doesn't like to read about kids? They make your heart melt. I give this book a 3.75 stars. This was just a light-hearted, happy book. This is exactly the book I wanted to read ending this summer. Good setting, good character, great dialogue. Her writing is very brief. The sentences are short, and sometimes I feel like it could come off a little bit cold, but it was a good book nonetheless. It was a good read. It's a fast-paced book. It's so easy to read. So those are the books that I've read all through summer. I hope you guys had fun. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books. And before I forget, I want to give a big shout outs to Josh and Dan. You two are my biggest OGs. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you on my next vlog. Toodles!